Well, we are live. Welcome everyone to our live Q&A feed for the MSc History, Global History and War Studies programs here at the University of Glasgow. If you're joining us live, then you're very welcome. We're glad you're here. Please, feel free to ask all the questions that you can possibly think of. If you're joining us later or on a later day and you're watching this as a recording, then yeah, a warm welcome to you as well. And we do hope you find what's coming very useful. My name is Jochen Schenk. I am the outgoing PGT history convener, which means that I am in charge of a whole bunch of MSc history programs here at Glasgow. I will be moderating this feed, and I'm being joined by my colleague Dan Larsen, who is running the War Studies MSc program, and we have a host of student volunteers here who are currently undergoing various programs. And I'd just say we just maybe introduce ourselves. So that was me. We got Megan, Madeline, Isla, and John. But starting with Dan, just a few words about yourself, maybe, and then we just do the rounds.
Well, hello, I'm Dan Larsen. As Jochen said, I'm the convener for the War Studies MSc. I'm a historian of the 20th century, Britain and the United States. I work mostly on the First World War, but have a broad range of teaching across war studies. So, yeah, that's me.
Megan, you wanna say a few words?
Sure. Hi, my name is Megan. I'm a medieval history student here at Glasgow. Yeah, and I love it.
Very good start. Madeline?
Madeline. I am in history specifically, but more medieval history interests in general, technically. I did both my undergrad and now my master's program here, so yeah.
Yeah, you're a veteran. And Isla, you as well, right? You came here through the undergrad program.
Yeah, I did my undergrad here in just broad history, and then decided to specialize in Scottish history for my master's. Yeah, and really enjoying it too.
Welcome. And John?
Hi, I'm John. I'm in my second year of a part-time global history master's. Here, I did my undergrad at Aberdeen University and then decided to make the big move down south to come here for my master's. So that's me.
Very good. Well, I'm very glad to have you all here on board. And I think collectively, we have a lot of wisdom to share to anyone who is keen to ask us any questions. While we wait for questions to come in, I wonder if we can just maybe, or you can just share some experiences you had, taking this course or the programs you've chosen, telling us maybe a little bit why you chose the program you're in, what kind of modules you picked, and maybe even why, and did you prepare for this at all? Once you decided to come to Glasgow and take the degree, was this something you did beforehand? Maybe moving on from there, kind of how hard was it transitioning from undergrad studies to postgraduate studies? These kind of experience. You want to share some of yours with us? Who wants to go first? Isla, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. So I obviously did my undergrad here and really enjoyed it. And I took one of the special subjects in my fourth year, which was the Gaelic Scotland module. This is just a larger module, basically. And kind of really fell in love with the kind of late medieval Gaelic Scotland world and decided that I wanted to do my master's in Scottish history, which was a similar application process to the other courses that they have here at Glasgow. But I was just really drawn to the different modules and things that they had. There is Military Scotland in the Age of Proto-Globalization class, which I was really drawn to, and that was absolutely excellent. There was Radical Scotland as well, which was a bit more political, which was really interesting. I was lucky enough to take medieval paleography as well, which is a kind of new skill that I've learned this year, which has been amazing, a whole new world that I kind of didn't really understand, which I've been opened up to, which has been fab. And it's just a great thing that I can add to my skill set. Yeah, just the amount of courses was brilliant, and yeah, so much choice. So yeah.
It's very good. Medieval paleography, that's kind of the how to read medieval writing. And it's really deciphering a whole new language there. And I guess that, you know, Megan, as a medieval historian, you probably took the same class, didn't you?
So I actually didn't. I was originally a global history student. And then after taking a few medieval courses, I moved over to the medieval field. So I didn't actually get, which I'm very disappointed in, and it would have been very helpful for me now that I'm doing my dissertation. But I did move over to the medieval history, which I was very happy I did.
That's very true. You started in another program, and so that's actually that's an interesting point, that you started in one program and then halfway through, more or less, decided that you actually were more drawn to medieval history, and it was actually possible to just change program because the core courses were the same anyways.
Yeah,
and that's maybe something to highlight, that although we have these different programs running, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them share the same core components, and that gives you a little bit of flexibility, that if you want to kind of switch the name tag basically of your program, as long as you fulfill the core if you take the core courses, that is something one can arrange, right? And you were one of these cases. You just found your calling somewhere else halfway through, right?
Yeah.
John, you stuck with global history, right? So no change there. How was your experience coming from Aberdeen and, you know, being an undergrad here and being thrown into postgrad studies at Glasgow? Was that difficult at all?
There was definitely an adjustment period for sure. I mean, it's a much bigger city, much, you know, for a larger area. One of the main draws for me being on the global history program was the opportunity to work with some of the collections that the university has to offer. I kind of scoped them out before I applied here, and that was fantastic. I got lots of opportunities to work very closely with things in the archives at the university and some of the museum collections. So that was a big draw for me. But yeah, I really like the look of the courses. It all kind of reflected the modules within the course, they all kind of did my own interests, and it was nice being like a bigger, more international city, and you really get a great experience of that with Glasgow. I think, at least I have over my 2 years here, and the course definitely helps with that too.
Yeah, very good. I see there's questions coming in from Jamie Fitzpatrick, who's currently finishing his undergrad degree in economic and social history at Glasgow University, and he's asking, you know, he's considering applying for a master's in global history. Is that okay? Is he prepared to do that with a degree in economic and social history? So I mean, the answer is yes, absolutely fine. You know, that's the quick and easy one, Jamie. You're coming with a relevant degree. And you will have absolutely no problem to take the global history program. And I guess, John, your experience, I mean, when you did your undergrad training, you didn't necessarily gear this towards global history, right? You had a history degree or whatever your undergrad degree was. So I guess you can probably back me up here and support when I say, you know, if you have an undergrad degree in a relevant subject, it doesn't have to be geared towards global. You will find your way in the global history program quite quickly and easily. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely, Jakob, 100%. I just did general history for my undergraduate, and even within a few weeks of finding myself on this program, I found so many ways of applying even the broad strokes of what I'd done previously. And Jamie, with what it sounds like you've done for your undergraduate, I can think of so many ways that would apply really well to the global history program that I'm about to finish. And quite a few of the additional modules as well really fit into economic and social history. It's a very kind of strong core part of the degree. So 100%, that would absolutely fit very, very well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I hope you others would agree as well. Madeline, you have some comments here as well. That's good.
I was just going to say that I took one global history course, and I did my undergrad in joint honors economics and history. And I found that like the economics background was actually really helpful for global history, that it provided a really interesting way of looking at because a lot of global history is very kind of multidisciplinary in a lot of ways. So having a slightly different background can be really helpful.
Yeah, and probably worthwhile mentioning here as well that we are looking at a very broad course catalog, and you take you enroll in a program, and that's global history or medieval history or Scottish history or war studies, and usually that comes with some core requirements. So in each program you are asked to take a small amount of courses. They're obligatory. They kind of give you the essential training you need and kind of background knowledge. And then you fill up your schedule with optional courses. So you can always kind of fill your program in a way that suits you best. There might be courses out there where saying, I'm just simply not prepared for this, or clearly maybe I'm not interested either. And that's fine. You just pick and choose and fill it in the way that's kind of catered to your interests and your abilities, and that way, I wouldn't worry about it. So Jamie, you're absolutely perfectly well equipped to do that. We have another question here from Margie. If I've other commitments, when would I be able to see the timetable requirements of each option to ensure I don't have conflicts with my other non-uni commitments? Yeah, I mean, that's a common one. A lot in our students, our cohort, some of them doing it part-time. A lot of them have other obligations, they have a job, part-time job, they have family caring obligations. And that's a perfectly valid question to ask. Usually the timetables are being fixed at the beginning of the term. So when you get your handbooks, actually the handbooks should be available pretty much soon now, should be coming out, and they do come with a timetable at the end. So you will see, so let's say in the summer, you will see which courses are being taught and when. There's always the chance that something might change at the last minute, and that's because we are all human too, and things happen in our lives. But these are minimal changes, not across the board. So it could be that one or two courses that you have picked out might just run in a slightly different setting at a slightly different time. But that's rarely happens. And so you can expect the handbooks to be released within the summer. So certainly in September, you should be able to have it. And that comes with a timetable. Yeah, I hope that addresses that question. Let me see. I think that's the two. Okay, well, if there are more questions to come, please put them in the chat. We're waiting here. Can I just ask who's coming? So Isla, you grew up through the system here, basically. John, you come from Aberdeen, not too far away. Madeline, you came from the States, aren't you? You're an international student. Is that correct? Madeline?
Sorry, you cut out for a second there.
Oh, did I? I'm very sorry. So I was just looking, we have some students who came either through the system here at Glasgow or came from Aberdeen, and then we have a lot of international students in our program as well. And I know that international students always have a lot of questions of their own. What is it like to live in Glasgow, right? Is it difficult to fit in? Is the system very different from what they're used to in the United States or wherever that might come from? So I wonder if some of you come from abroad, what your experience was fitting in here in Glasgow, finding a place to live and making roots.
Yeah, so I've lived here for 7 years now. I came for my undergrad. I stayed on a graduate visa and worked for 2 years, and then I've done my master's now. So I don't have any experience with like the university system in the US or anything.
Right.
But in terms of like the school system, I found the transition not too bad to undergrad, and then the transition from undergrad to a master's was mainly just taking a break out and working for a couple years was a bit hard. But like the actual step up from undergrad to master's wasn't difficult. In terms of finding a place to live, I think probably Megan can speak to that more than me, because I did halls in first year of university and then have lived with friends and stuff since then. So a bit different from coming in as a master's student, I think.
Right. Okay. Well, that certainly helps that you already had a network established here when you started your master's. And Megan, what was your experience?
So I got accommodation through the university. So I'm in postgrad accommodation for international students. And I think it's wonderful. It's super helpful to have something that I knew I could get through the university. And you pretty much were able to put what you kind of wanted, and then the university put you somewhere that they thought would be the best match for you. So it was really helpful.
Very good. I can see that. So Jamie has a follow-up question here. Could the current students tell us about how it is sorted funding for their courses? I'm aware postgraduate studies are not funded by the Scottish government like undergraduate studies are. Yeah, that's true. Jamie, you're right there. So yeah, that's a very pressing and timely question, right? How do you finance it all? Do you want to speak to that? Anyone?
I can speak from my own experience for funding. Though bear in mind, this is for a couple of years ago now that I first came to university, so this information might not be entirely up to date. But Jamie's correct in that it's not funded entirely by the Scottish government. However, you can get a loan, a SAS loan of up to £7,000, I believe, to cover a course, or whatever your course ends up being. So that takes up quite a big chunk of what your fees would be, and then there's a little bit left over that you do have to pay. You can do it in a one-off payment. You can pay it off in installments like I have. With a part-time degree such as the one that I did, it's split between the 2 years. So you pay one half of it up front and then another half of it in the next year. So there's lots of options for funding. It's not absolute, it doesn't cover the whole thing like with undergrad, but there are lots of options to make things work.
I'd like to just add to that as well and say that if you are going from undergrad at Glasgow to postgrad at Glasgow, you can get an alumni discount. So I was lucky enough to get 20% off my studies, which means that the loan covers more for me. But I would also say there is like a whole host of what are they called? It starts with an S.
Scholarships,
sort of, and funding opportunities. Sorry, the word just escaped me. That you can get. I know that there's 2 for Scottish history, and I would just say to any prospective student that it's worth applying. The worst they're going to say is no. Like, just put in an application for extra funding, because you never know, basically.
That's very good advice. Yes. I see the chat. Oh, there's for Dr. Larsen. Denise is asking, good day, everyone. Well, good day, Denise. Can I find a list somewhere of the actual battles to be discussed this academic year? Do you know if battlefield archaeology will be available? Thanks, Denise.
Well, so just for context, Denise is referring to the War Core course, which is the kind of main course that War Studies students take over the autumn semester, and it looks at kind of warfare over round about a millennium through the prism of battles, and looking at these kind of moments as ways of opening up much larger discussions about the evolution of warfare across medieval to modern history. And so you've caught me a little bit, because we've only just finished this academic year, and I've not actually gotten commitments from people for which ones we're going to cover next year. Rest assured, we will do the Battle of the Somme, because that's what I'm doing.
We'll do Hattin as well.
Yes. So great. So Jochen will open after an introductory week, and then we will do the Battle of the Somme. We have had a number of different ones that I still need to line up, so I don't want to commit to any particular ones. But but Tony Pollard, who is a battlefield archaeologist, did do 2 of the ones last year, so I'm very hopeful that we would get him back for at least one of them this year, which would be looking at it from an episode from an archaeology point of view, and as well because the research center that's behind the masters is the Scottish Centre for War Studies and Conflict Archaeology. And so there are a couple of archaeology options that would be available as part of the masters for you to take in semester 2. So if you're interested in battlefield archaeology, there's definitely the ability to do both war studies and conflict archaeology in certain proportions. So.
Very good. Well, thanks, Dan. And Denise, if you have any follow-up questions, just please put them in the chat. We have another one here from M. Rose Hunt. Welcome, M. Rose. When applying to the University of Glasgow, should prospective students reach out to a professor proactively about research and study, or does the university help match you to a research advisor? I don't know if any of you have you, when you decide to come to Glasgow, did you get in touch with somebody in particular and say, listen, I'm coming, tell me more about your course, or I have particular research interests, would you be able to accommodate them? Did you reach out to anybody? No, it's not something that's expected. No, because you are applying to what's called a PGT program, a postgraduate taught program, which means that the main bulk of what you're doing here is coursework, and it's in the second semester that you will be thinking about a dissertation, which then carries you through the summer. So the expectation is not for you to come here necessarily with a fully developed dissertation project in mind. We do not expect that. If you have one in mind, if you think that at the end of this year you know exactly what you would like to work on and focus on for the dissertation, by all means, if you identify somebody amongst the staff who said, this is the person I would most likely want to work with on this, you can always reach out. Yes, absolutely. If you have questions about how to develop your ideas, you can do that at any time, but it's not a requirement. We fully appreciate that most of our students will come here not quite knowing what they're going to write about at the end of the year. We expect these interests to develop over the year. You will be taking quite a lot of courses, and the expectation and the hope is that through the coursework you will find something that you get really passionate about. Or you have, if it's something that is not covered by coursework, we can always talk about whether or not this is suitable for a dissertation. So long answer short, we wouldn't expect you to reach out to us, but you can always do. If you have ideas, reach out to me or my successor, Christine White, who will be taking over the role this summer. Or feel free to chat to any of the colleagues you can find on the website who you think is aligned with your ideas, and just talk about your plans. But do not think that you have to do that. You don't have to come here with a developed plan for a dissertation. There's quite a bit of scaffolding along the way in the first semester, how you start thinking about dissertations. We talk about how you develop them. You have done time the second semester to identify staff members who kind of are more suitable to do that. And it's midway through the second semester that you will probably think more closely and about the dissertation. I mean, I guess all of you guys, you are now involved in dissertation work at some stage, right? At early stage, you've submitted your proposal. You have a good idea, a rough idea, what you want to do. When did you guys start thinking about it? When in kind of about the project of a dissertation? When was that in the progress of the degree? Madeline, yeah.
So I had like a rough area that I wanted to do my dissertation in coming in, like in 1,000-year time period in one culture, right? And then I chatted to a couple of professors during first semester and had some informal discussions, kind of narrowing down a gap and getting some recommendations for some reading I could do. And then I reached out for more formal discussions once I had somewhat of an idea in like January, and had my supervisor formalized late February, early March for my proposal. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a very standard procedure. I think it probably worked kind of similar for the rest of you as well. Is that correct? Yeah. I was just saying that I didn't miss in Rose's question. So reaching out proactively about research and study. So for the study part, when you're deciding which courses to take, it will be clear to you which courses you must take. These are the core elements, and they were being flagged up to you in the handbook. And there's just no discussion about it. These are kind of the skeleton, the core of the program that you just have to take. And the optional courses, it's entirely up to you. So you have a look at the course proposals and see what interests you. And sometimes courses fill up quite quickly. Most of the time you will be fine, but it's usually kind of first come, first served. Some courses are reserved to particular programs to make sure that these students get access first. Mostly these are the core courses. But it's entirely up to you how you want to fill the optional component. You can always reach out to course conveners, and their names will be mentioned in the prospectus. So you can always reach out and say, listen, what's the course about? Can you tell me more? And we are more than happy to divulge the information, although a lot of that will be in the prospectus. And about the research part of the degree, that is the dissertation in the end. And I think, as Madeline made clear in her response, the expectation is for you to get in touch with researchers, with staff. So the expectation is being that you are proactive in seeking out members of staff who align with your interests. But if you are in doubt, ask. We are here to help. So if you say, I'm struggling to identify somebody who is suitable for the project I have in mind, just ask me, ask Dan if it's war studies, or Christine, who's taking over from me, and we are more than happy to guide you in the right direction. Sometimes it turns out that just simply isn't one, that whatever you have in mind as a project is not one that we can cover. And then we'll tell you so, and we just have to identify something else for you to do. Yes, but it's the default expectation is to be proactive in identifying the person you want to work with. Now, I can see there's a lot of information here. A question from Joe Smith. Hello, Joe. I was wondering what has been everyone's favorite module that they have taken. Oh, well, at least he's not asking about the least favorite one. It's always good to the positive note. What's the most famous module you have taken? Well, let's start. Megan, anything?
I think for me, it was probably, I took a crusading class for medieval history. And that class was what I was like, oh, this is more what I like rather than the global history. So that one was very interesting. And the way it was set up, so each week there was a different lecturer for that class. So and each lecturer got to bring in their area of expertise into the Crusades as a whole. So that was really interesting. And it was a really good all-encompassing of what the Crusades were and how they were handled.
That's the world of the Crusades, right? That was the course, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe
it
that's
is.
what it's called.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and it is one of the team taught courses, which is actually an interesting aspect to mention, that most of the modules you will be taking are what we call single taught modules. So you have a teacher like me or Dan teaching their speciality, right? Something they're researching on, and that's single taught. But quite a few of the courses, particularly core courses, are what we call team taught. So you have a team of teachers who bring in their expertise into the classroom. So you have different teachers at different times talking about it's a umbrella that they're all under. So there's a theme running through the course, of course, but they bring in different expertise and different perspectives. And the World of the Crusade is one of these courses where we have colleagues from early Middle Ages up to the late Middle Ages and early modern times telling how their research and their period and their interests align with the one key theme of Crusades and crusading, which suddenly becomes a lot more complex than one might anticipate now entering the course. It's not just one single thing. It's actually complex. It's a very complex phenomenon. So, I'm glad. Okay, good to hear. Madeline, do you have any favorites that you want to share with the audience?
I also was in the World of the Crusades, and I thought that was very good. I was in medieval paleography, which Isla mentioned, and I thought that was very helpful. I did a Islam and Byzantines course, which was really interesting because Byzantines is a particular area of interest to me. But I think my favorite, in terms of like it really changed the way I was looking at things, was women in power in the Italian Renaissance, which I think really brought some interesting perspectives in that I'm trying to apply kind of backwards a bit now in my own research. So that's cool.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Isla, do you have any gems?
For me, it was the Military Scotland in the Age of Proto-Globalization. It's run by Andrew McKillop, who's really kind of the center and the forefront of that whole area of research. And it was just like an excellent course, like no notes, basically.
Yeah, I can imagine knowing Mackie, as we called him. It's bound to be a really good popular course. John, you have any favorite?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to answer that question, really. I've had so many good experiences with the modules I've taken here. I think one that sticks out to me as just a kind of a wonderful and very unique experience on a course was the Global History through Local Archives core course that you usually take in, I think, second semester. That was what was really fantastic about that was it kind of alternated week by week. There were lots of different professors would come in with very different focuses, so that was good to get like a broad idea of the different fields of global history. And then I think it was 4 times during the course we would go somewhere else in Glasgow to an archive or a collection somewhere, get to work kind of hands-on with pieces of history effectively, whether they were written sources or physical objects and that sort of thing. We'd spend a couple of hours in an archive working with these pieces, figuring out how they came to be in Glasgow, what they would have been used for, writing like small reflections on those as like coursework for that course as well. So that was a very unique and really kind of enriching experience. You really felt like quite lucky to be able to access all of these things. And so yeah, that's always stuck with me. I think is probably my favorite course here.
That's a really good example because it's an excellent course that introduces you to so much Glasgow has to offer, and you just realize the richness and the archives we have, the museums we have, either attached to the university like the Hunterian or then the Calvin Grove or even further afield, Burrell Collection and so on. There is a lot of culture in Glasgow, and that course is very good in exposing students to the variety of material that's available. Very good one. Yeah, I mean, these are, yeah, I would take any of them as well. I agree. Rose, okay, is asking, is the University of Glasgow primarily considered a Renaissance and medieval history university? Because I guess you're talking a lot about medieval stuff, or do you also have a strong modern contemporary history department? Yes, we do. And I'm sure Dan can say a little bit about that component, because it definitely features a lot stronger in the War Studies program. But we do have some noise going on. I think we have amongst our students here, and with me as medievalist, a strong medieval history component in the panel right now. Something is making an odd noise here. But overall, the majority of our courses would lean towards the modern and contemporary history. We have very big centers here we have war studies for one. We have global history as a center. We have gender history as a center. There's a huge research focus on slavery studies and so on. We have a degree in modern history, a PhD, a master's degree. So I would say the majority of our course offerings are probably more in the from the Renaissance onwards into contemporary times. It's just here, I guess, we have a panel that had a keen interest in medieval things, and rightly so. It's exciting. But no, rest assured that it's a fair balance. We do cover everything from early medieval to contemporary, and there is a lot on the other end of the spectrum. I know, Dan, do you have a few words, kind of courses that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, because one thing is that Glasgow does have a strong medieval history section that, at a lot of universities there might be the token medievalist, whereas Glasgow's got half a dozen at least. But that is sort of 7 out of 40. That we are a pretty sizable history subject here, with quite a lot of members of staff, and the vast majority of them are in modern history, and so if you have an interest in medieval history, Glasgow is the place, I would say, to do it. But if you have interests that span both, or that are more concentrated in modern history, there's a very large proportion of the staff who are catering to your interests. So so that's what I would say on that.
Yeah. Pointing a light on staff proportionality is a good way to do it. Yes, we have a sizable medieval history department, or area as we call it, but it pales to the modern part. We have another question here. Is there a specific number of courses we can take outside the MSc, in this case modern history program, but I guess it applies to all the other programs as well, for example English Lit, colonialism. So the general question is, do I have to take history courses for a history PhD program, or can I cast my net more widely and attend other courses and take other courses as well? And the policy is that yes, you can. It's still going to be a history degree, so the majority of the courses have to be history courses, whatever then the program is. That's where the majority of the courses should lie, but you are allowed to take non-history courses as well as part of the options, and it's usually we say one. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's kind of usually if you have one non-historical course in mind, it has to fit within this curriculum, so there shouldn't be any overlap with any core components that you have to take for the course. But if that's the case, then yeah, we will greenlight it. And English Lit is one of these standard courses that others history students will take. Anything from history, archaeology is one that's often taken. So the quick answer is yes. You can do that. If you want to take more than one course, that's something we would need to negotiate, because again, it has to be it's a history degree, so you're majority of your training should be in history and not outside. If it's just one you want to take, often students come and they want to take a language on the side, and that's something we can talk about, because that's we like you to do that. So it's possible, yes, absolutely fine. I don't know if any of you guys, have you taken any outside classes at all, outside of history? Isla's nodding.
I did a Celtic and Gaelic course just because it worked well with what I study and what my research aims are. So
yeah, it makes total sense as well if you start studying Scottish history. Languages in general make sense if that's what you want to do. Anybody else have taken any outside? No. So, but the answer is yes. So you can do that. It's usually we kind of limit it to one, but there's room for negotiation. If it makes good sense, then we can definitely talk about that. Right, just going through questions. That's it for now. Well, we almost have we have our 40 minutes in already. Maybe kind of a general idea. Maybe people are contemplating coming to Glasgow. Yes, they want to come to the University of Glasgow, but I would assume that a lot of our listeners or viewers have never been to Glasgow. What is it like? What is it like living in Glasgow? Is it a cool city to be in? I say so, but what do I know? I'm not a student. What is it like being a student in Glasgow? Any experience you want to share? Yeah.
I mean, I can go. I loved moving to Glasgow. I love Glasgow. I think it's a wonderful city. It's so easy to explore and get everywhere. The subway system is really easy. It's a giant loop, so you can't get lost, which was a big thing for me because I can get lost pretty much anywhere. And it's just a really easy city to get around, and everybody's so nice and is really willing to help you find things. If you're kind of standing there looking lost, someone will help you out. So yeah, it was a great city to get used to.
Yeah, they say people make Glasgow, and there's something to it. Yeah, it's a very friendly city. Yeah. How was it moving from Aberdeen to Glasgow? Was that a big jump, John?
Well, my perspective is a little bit different because I don't actually live in Glasgow itself.
Oh, interesting.
I live in Falkirk, a little bit outside, but I think it says a lot to how great the public transport connections are, that you can live quite far outside of Glasgow and still get a really good experience of the city itself. It's very easy to get in. The local train networks are fantastic. The bus networks are really good. There's lots of different options. And yeah, I mean, for me, coming from quite a small city to obviously the biggest one in this country was a big change, but it's lovely. As Megan was saying, the people are fantastic. There's so much to do and see, so much culture, lots of great nightlife and stuff as well. That's the sort of thing that you're after. But lots of green spaces. On the few days where the weather is really nice, it's lovely as well to sit in those. That is a big treat. But yeah, it's a fantastic place. I'm sure it's a great place to live in, but even as somebody who doesn't live there, I've gotten a great experience out of even being close to there. So
yeah, and let's not forget that it's also easy to get out of Glasgow, and the hinterland, so the Highlands and Islands are phenomenal. They are everything that's being promised to us in the prospectus and on the travel websites. It holds up. And I think I know from amongst the staff, a lot of us are taking up hill walking and hiking, and we're spending the weekends, outside exploring the hinterland of Glasgow. It's just marvelous, just beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I share your impressions, and I think the cultural scene is really quite something here in Glasgow, even for older people like me. There's a lot going on. If you like live music, Celtic connections in February is awesome, right? So yeah, I mean, that's are there any tips you would like to give to anyone who contemplates coming here as a student to Glasgow? I think, man, I wish someone had told me. Oh, Madeleine, here, don't want to forget you. You got something here.
I was just gonna say, I would really encourage people especially as a graduate student, to not just look at the West End for places to live, that there's fantastic places to live all over the city. And I've lived in the West End for years, and but currently I live in Govan Hill in the South Side. And I find it a lot more engaging as a slightly older student, that there's still like a young person culture, but it's not quite as overwhelmed by undergraduates all the time, which is nice. And I just want to second that it's really easy to get around the city in general. I live in the city, but I work outside the city, and it's only about an hour commute. So it's not bad at all.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. So the West End, for those who don't know, it's where the university is situated. So it's very close to the unis. A lot of students live in the West End, quite a few professors as well. But it's a big city, yeah, and all these different parts of the city are very unique. You have the East End is different from the West End, the South is different from the North, and you're absolutely right. It's worth exploring all of them. If you can't live in one place, just try somewhere else. Yeah, but yeah, that's a good tip. Any other kind of tips? Someone who's thinking coming here say, oh, gosh, I wish someone had told me that, John.
I mean, we've touched on it a little bit already, but Glasgow's such a great base to explore the rest of the country. And it really is, you just like 10 or 15 minutes on a train outside of the city, and you're just in this wonderful kind of wilderness, really beautiful places to go and explore. So do it, you know, if you can, if traveling something that you can do, absolutely take the time to go and explore the country. It's really beautiful to look at. I've lived all over Scotland in lots of rural places, and Glasgow is very different to what the rest of the country is like. So it's good if you can to get experiences of both. And it can be quite relaxing, you know, it's nice to go and study somewhere that isn't in the city every now and then. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I would just say to take advantage of that and see as much of the country as you can while you're here.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And if you need a change of city, you know, it's Edinburgh is less than an hour away by train. You know, you can be there in 50 minutes. Stirling, you know. Any other tips, Megan? What do you think? Oh gosh, I wish somebody had told me that.
Well, when I first got here, I actually did one of the hop on, hop off bus tours. It was like one of the first things I did just so that I could actually see the city. And it was actually really helpful because it showed like some highlights of things that a tourist would want to see. But then I could even just, when I was walking around, I'd be like, oh, I kind of know where that is. And I also, just now that I don't have like the modules, I'm just working on my dissertation, I go on Mondays, I go and study in Edinburgh. And then on Tuesdays, I study in Stirling. And Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I stay in Glasgow. So it's so easy to get around. Stirling's like a 30-minute train ride. Yeah. It's so easy to get around, and it really helps kind of keep everything clear by going and working in other places.
Yeah, that's a really nice tip. Thank you. Isla, do you have any wisdom to share?
Well, I suppose it's slightly different because I did my undergrad here and then I've done my postgrad here as well. But there's like literally a million societies that you can join, like, and the sports societies as well are amazing. And I would definitely say, like, even if you're only here for a year or a couple of years, make the most of them. Like, you meet some of your best friends through societies or through sports and things. And so it's definitely an avenue worth exploring. There's literally something for everyone, like literally a million things you can do.
Yeah. Dan, do you have any tips for any newcomer? I wonder, huh?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think it's to take your time and explore the place, because there's just so much around, and it's especially if you end up living in the West End, it's actually quite easy to sort of have your world shrink, and not letting that happen is actually is such a great idea, because there's just so much around and about, and yeah, because I'm fairly new here. I'm only this is only the end of my second year working at Glasgow, and so yeah, I still feel like there's a good bit of exploring for me to do. So
yeah, still exploring the city. I mean, I'm gonna put something in with my convener hat on, because I do know I've done this now for a number of years. So I see cohorts come and go, and I get, you know, a lot of the questions that, or I see some of the anxiety at the beginning of the year, and I will always encourage anyone who comes here. I want to let you know we totally appreciate and expect that it's bewildering in many ways. It's a for a lot of you, it's a new university, it's a new place. There's a lot to sort out. You don't really know who to talk to, who does what. And it's not always the easiest to find things out, and I totally appreciate that. It's a million names, a million people, a million locations. You kind of seem to be asked to be at once. I always encourage you to reach out. It sounds very simple, but I see people really building up anxieties and not really knowing how to navigate a program with all the options there are. And when I would say, just, it's a simple question. Just come to me, or whoever is in my post, come to Dan if you're in war studies, and knock on the door, send an email and say, listen, I need help. Can you just, you know, do you have 5 minutes? If you are feeling overwhelmed, or just simply you don't know, you know, what to do and you're not sure, just talk. I mean, and that's it's a very, very simple thing to say, but it's so difficult sometimes because everybody's a stranger to you at the beginning. But we don't want to be strangers. We really we want you to kind of come here, talk to us, tell us about you, and we're happy to help. And that would be my piece of advice. And that starts now. So if you have any doubts and questions about the program, you know, just reach out. Do it here, or now that the hour is almost over, send emails, follow up. We are very, very keen to help. We really want to hear from you guys. So that would be my advice, and I think we can all agree that it's a good place to be. Glasgow. I do kind of want to see if something else has come in. I don't think that's the case, so I reckon we can probably come to a close with this session very soon. Is there anything else you want to share with students? I mean, have you undergone any difficulties in your studies where you think there were hard times and I wish I had done things differently? If I could do it again, I would do things differently. All good. A lot of happy customer. That's very that's very nice. Right. In that case, I think we can probably bring this to an end. Felix C says, much appreciated for your time and great information. Well, I'm very glad, Felix, that you got something out of this. And you, like everybody else, if something else comes up, any questions you have that you didn't have right now, that didn't come to mind, just send us an email. Joe says, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for being here, Joe. Very nice to have you here. I hope you got something out of it. And I think that we just leave it at that, right? Well, I must say, I find this very interesting as well. You know, just hearing what the questions are, and I really appreciate hearing your viewpoints on being here in Glasgow. That was really appreciated. That's a wrap, everyone.